Imagine a truth so explosive, it could shatter the stained glass ceiling of your faith. What if the stories you hold sacred, passed down through generations, are only fragments of a much larger, deliberately concealed reality? Dare to consider that the identity of the Israelites, those revered figures of the Bible, has been strategically obscured, their true image and legacy hijacked throughout history. What if the very people you thought you knew have been painted with the wrong brush, their rich heritage bleached from the narrative? Today, we embark on a journey to unearth the suppressed history of the Black Israelites in the Bible, a truth long relegated to the shadows. This isn't mere academic exercise. It's a reclamation of heritage, a reconnection to a divine identity denied to millions. The narrative is richer, more profound, and more challenging than anything you've been led to believe. Prepare for 9 revelations that will challenge your understanding of the Bible, of history, and perhaps of yourself. These truths, grounded in Scripture, bolstered by historical evidence, and illuminated by modern science, have been suppressed for far too long. The veil is about to be lifted. Brace yourself, because once you see, you cannot unsee. This is a transformative journey, one that demands courage and an open mind. The information ahead may challenge deeply held beliefs, but it is essential. It's time for the full truth to be revealed. We are all familiar with the traditional portrayals of biblical figures in art, education, and media. But what if those very images are part of a centuries-old deception, a deliberate effort to conceal the true story of God's chosen people? What if the real identity of the Israelites has been strategically hidden, their history twisted to serve a hidden agenda? If you feel a stirring of curiosity, a sense of urgency to understand, lean in. This exploration is not for the faint of heart. It's a deep dive into a suppressed history that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the Bible and the people of God. But I promise you, if you stay the course, you will see these revelations in a new and empowering light. You'll understand why this matters not just for Black Israelites, but for all of God's children, regardless of background. So, if you're ready to have your beliefs tested and your worldview expanded, type 707 in the comments below to show you're with me on this journey. Prepare to encounter facts that will not only shock you, but empower you to see yourself and the world in a whole new way. These truths have been buried for too long. The time has come to exhume them, bring them into the light, and reclaim the divine heritage that belongs to us all. The real story of the Black Israelites is about to unfold. 9 shocking facts about Black Israelites in the Bible they don't want you to know. Let's begin with a secret so controversial, so paradigm-shifting, that powerful forces have worked tirelessly to bury it. Could it be that the true identity of the Israelites has been intentionally obscured, whitewashed, and replaced to serve a narrative that has robbed countless people of their rightful inheritance? For centuries, the question of who the Israelites truly were has been fiercely debated. However, the Bible itself, read without the filter of European artistic interpretations, paints a picture that has been systematically ignored. Instead of the fair-skinned, blue-eyed figures that populate religious art, the scriptures subtly reveal a people with skin darkened by the sun, deeply connected to the ancient African lands. What if we dared to take these verses at face value? In Song of Solomon 1:5-6, the Shulamite woman declares, with both pride and vulnerability, "I am black, but beautiful. Daughters of Jerusalem, dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon. The Hebrew word used here is shachor, which means black. Not tan, not olive, but deeply, richly dark. This wasn't simply poetic imagery. It was a bold declaration of her identity, her beauty, and her heritage. Why, then, has this been erased or minimized in so many retellings? Consider the implications. If the Shulamite, a figure of beauty and desire, was black, what does that say about the people of Israel during Solomon's reign? What else have we overlooked or been intentionally misled about? The clues are not isolated incidents. In Exodus 2:19, when Moses fled Egypt, he was mistaken for an Egyptian by the daughters of Midian. Pause and reflect on this for a moment. How could such a mistake occur unless Moses bore a striking resemblance to the Egyptians? And who were the Egyptians? Their own elaborate wall paintings depicted dark-skinned people. This isn't just a random historical detail. It's visual evidence preserved in art. If Moses could blend seamlessly with the Egyptians, then we must ask ourselves, did the Hebrews, his own people, share similar physical traits? The prophet Jeremiah provides another compelling piece of evidence in Lamentations 4-8, stating, "Their appearance is darker than blackness. They are not recognized in the streets." And again in Lamentations 5:10, "Our skin is hot as an oven because of the burning heat of famine." These aren't metaphors of suffering. They are visceral, bodily descriptions of the appearance of a sun-beaten people indigenous to northeastern Africa. And now, a powerful declaration. Anima amin bunakma, a Hebrew phrase meaning, I believe with perfect faith. I believe with unwavering conviction that the Bible itself bears witness to the true appearance of the Israelites. Yet, this truth has been systematically suppressed. Their image has been whitewashed, their story rewritten, and their lineage disconnected from the very people who needed that connection the most. Why was this done? And more importantly, who benefits from keeping this truth hidden? One of the most unsettling confirmations of this suppressed truth is found in Deuteronomy 28, a chapter often recited but rarely understood in its full, devastating context. It details the consequences that would befall the children of Israel if they turned away from God's commandments. Verse 68 is particularly chilling. "The Lord will send you back in ships to Egypt, on a journey I said you should never make again." This wasn't simply a return to the land of the pyramids. Here, Egypt symbolizes bondage, slavery, and oppression. Which group of people in history were forcibly taken in ships, sold into slavery, and scattered across nations, enduring precisely the curses foretold in this verse. The transatlantic slave trade stands as the horrifying fulfillment of this prophecy. Millions were abducted from West Africa, crammed into ships, and sold into bondage, suffering the curses that Deuteronomy warned of thousands of years earlier. Could it be that these enslaved people weren't just victims of circumstance, but the very descendants of biblical Israel? The rabbit hole goes even deeper. The name Cush, commonly translated today as Ethiopia, once encompassed a vast expanse of African territory. The biblical Cushites were undeniably black, and their lineage surfaces repeatedly in Scripture. Moses himself married a Cushite woman, as documented in Numbers 12:1. When his sister Miriam criticized this union, she was struck with leprosy by God. And why was she punished so severely? Not because of arbitrary tribal boundaries, but because of her prejudice. God's rebuke was not merely a defense of love. It was a defense of truth, a powerful statement that he saw no issue with the mingling of Israelites and Cushites. If anything, It implied their shared spiritual and even ancestral connection. So now we must confront the central question. Why haven't we been told this? Why has the image of Moses' wife been obscured, her identity diminished, and the deeper message erased? What does this silence reveal about the stories we've inherited and the stories that have been deliberately withheld from us? If you've read this far and your spirit is deeply stirred, it means something within you recognizes the ring of truth. Type 777 in the comments to declare that you're awakening, that you're reclaiming your spiritual birthright. Because this is only the beginning. There are 8 more secrets waiting to be unearthed, and each one will challenge everything you thought you knew. Now we come to the second shocking secret, one that challenges centuries of artistic tradition and forces us to re-examine the very foundation of the biblical family tree. This truth concerns the true origins and appearance of the Israelite patriarchs, beginning with Abraham himself, the revered father of the Israelite nation. Abraham was not born in a European city, nor did he originate from a region known for fair complexions or straight, golden hair. Scripture clearly states in Genesis 11:31 that Abraham hailed from Ur of the Chaldees, a region in Mesopotamia, modern-day southern Iraq near the Persian Gulf. What is often conveniently omitted is that Mesopotamia, during that era, was a vibrant cultural crossroads. This land served as a hub of interaction among diverse groups, including people from Africa. So why do so many depictions of Abraham portray him as a European elder, with soft features and fair skin? The Bible itself provides no physical description of Abraham. None whatsoever. That silence has allowed centuries of Eurocentric interpretation to completely repaint him, to reimagine him not based on Scripture, but based on the prevailing aesthetic sensibilities of medieval and Renaissance art. But if the text remains silent on his physical appearance, how can we be so certain about what he truly looked like? Is it possible that the truth has been overwritten by those who wielded the power to dictate which images would endure? Let's follow his lineage further. Abraham's grandson Jacob fathered 12 sons. These sons became the progenitors of the 12 tribes of Israel. Among them was Joseph, the dreamer, the favored son, the one betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. Joseph's story is widely known, but within it lies a subtle yet powerful clue about the physical appearance of the Israelites. In Genesis 42, during a period of severe famine, Joseph's brothers journeyed to Egypt in search of food. They came face to face with their own brother, yet they failed to recognize him. Scripture tells us that Joseph was dressed as an Egyptian and that he spoke to them through an interpreter. But pause and consider this carefully. Would simply changing his clothes and speaking a different language be enough to completely disguise someone from his own family? Or is there something deeper at play here? Could it be that Joseph physically resembled the Egyptians so closely that, when he stood among them, even his own brothers, who had grown up with him, couldn't distinguish him from the surrounding people? If the ancient Egyptians were as dark-skinned as their artwork and tomb paintings depict, men and women with full lips, dark complexions, and tightly curled hair, then what does this imply about Joseph? And by extension, what does it imply about the entire Israelite lineage? The artwork of ancient Egypt has survived for thousands of years. It is carved into the walls of temples, painted in tombs, and etched into stone. These images present a consistent portrait of a people with distinct northeastern African features, traits that align far more closely with African heritage than with modern European ones. If Joseph lived among them, rose to a position of power, married into Egyptian nobility, and raised his children within Pharaoh's court, doesn't it suggest that he physically blended in? And if Joseph could pass among the Egyptians so seamlessly, what does that say about his father Jacob, his grandfather Isaac, and his great-grandfather Abraham? A powerful Hebrew phrase speaks volumes here. Ha-Mitzrayim Enu. The Egyptians and the Hebrews were brothers. This wasn't simply a spiritual or symbolic kinship. It reflected a shared ancestry, a regional connection, and a cultural and ethnic closeness that most modern interpretations conveniently choose to ignore. So why have these truths been suppressed? Why have we accepted sanitized versions of the patriarchs, detached from their geographical and ethnic roots? Could it be that acknowledging their true origins would connect millions of African descendants to a legacy far grander than they have ever been told? And here is an even more profound question. What would happen if the world embraced the reality that the founders of the faith, the patriarchs of Israel, may have looked far more like the people taken from Africa in chains than the ones who painted them on stained glass windows? This secret, like the first, isn't just about history. It's about identity. It's about reclaiming what was stolen, not only through slavery, but also through silence. If this truth is opening your eyes, type 77 in the comments and declare it. You're beginning to see. The lies are unraveling, and as we move forward, each revelation will draw you closer to the truth that has been buried for far too long. Stay with us, because the next secret will delve even deeper. Now we uncover the third secret, a revelation not just of people or place, but of language itself. This secret whispers across time, echoing through syllables and traditions that many never thought to connect. It is the hidden linguistic bond between Hebrew and African languages, a bond so ancient and undeniable that one must wonder, why has it been kept from us for so long? Hebrew, the sacred tongue of the Israelites, is not an isolated language. It is part of the Afroasiatic language family, a linguistic tree that branches across both the Middle East and the African continent. This includes languages such as Amharic, spoken by Ethiopian Jews, as well as the diverse Berber dialects of North Africa. The connection isn't theoretical, it's structural, phonetic, and deeply rooted, but the trail doesn't end in the northeast. It leads us westward into the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where tribes like the Yoruba and Igbo preserve linguistic and cultural echoes of the ancient Hebrews. Could it really be that these African communities, separated by oceans and time from the modern state of Israel, still carry fragments of a lost language? Are we witnessing the remnants of a people who once walked side by side with the patriarchs? Among the Yoruba of Nigeria, the word for Saturday is Ohosimi, a name that curiously reflects the Hebrew idea of Shabbat, the Sabbath day of rest. The phonetic resemblance is not the only link. Their sacred customs, naming patterns, and oral histories echo the rhythms of Hebrew worship. Then consider the Igbo people, also of Nigeria. They practice male circumcision on the 8th day after birth, exactly as commanded in Leviticus 12:3. Who taught them this? How did a people in West Africa come to adopt such a precise ritual from Hebrew law, if not by descent or deep-rooted cultural transmission? These traditions are not recent. They go back generations, woven into the very fabric of community life. Some may rush to dismiss these parallels as coincidences, but coincidences don't explain linguistic patterns. sacred customs, and shared theological structures. These are what scholars sometimes call linguistic fossils, residues of an ancient tongue buried in time but still alive in the speech and rituals of those who remember, even unconsciously. Yet, for centuries, these connections were dismissed, if not actively suppressed. Why? Could it be that Eurocentric scholarship, built during eras of colonization and empire, had no interest in validating the African origins of a biblical people? When the prevailing narrative painted Africa as a continent without legacy, without scripture, without contribution to divine history, how inconvenient it would have been to reveal that the very sounds of Africa's tongues were speaking Hebrew truths. The Bible itself hints at this once shared language, Sapa Achanu. We all shared one language once. This ancient unity was fractured at Babel, scattered across continents, but not erased. When the Israelites were dispersed throughout the earth, their language traveled with them. And even as empires rose and fell, even as names changed and borders shifted, traces of Hebrew remained hidden in plain sight. In lullabies, in proverbs, in sacred rites. Why, then, is this truth not widely taught in seminaries or biblical history books? Why is there so much resistance to acknowledging these ties? Is it because to recognize the language is to recognize the people who carry it? Is it because to follow the trail of words is to rediscover the lost tribes, not in Europe, but in Africa? What if the languages spoken in African villages today are not remnants of isolated tribal customs, but the living echoes of God's chosen people? What if the tongues dismissed by scholars hold the very syllables once spoken in Jerusalem? And here is the haunting question. If the descendants of Israel were scattered, wouldn't their speech remain as proof of who they were? If your spirit is stirring with recognition, if something within you whispers that this cannot be coincidence, type 7 in the comments and let your voice be counted among those awakening to truth. Because language does not lie, and the fourth secret will take us even deeper into what has been hidden from you. Are you ready? The answer to this great deception lies within the fourth secret, a truth so carefully buried that it took centuries of silence, doctrine, and empire to keep it hidden. This is not just a case of historical misunderstanding or innocent misrepresentation. It was a deliberate campaign crafted during one of the darkest periods of human history, the colonial era. But ask yourself, what happens when those in power fear the spiritual identity of those they oppress? During the height of colonial expansion, European powers sought not only to conquer land, but to seize minds, faiths, and identities. In their pursuit of dominion, they needed something more powerful than guns and chains. They needed justification. And what better way to justify enslavement than through the very words of Scripture? But here was the problem. What if the very people they enslaved were actually the descendants of the Israelites themselves? To avoid this spiritual contradiction, history had to be rewritten. The Africans being taken from their homelands, beaten, sold, and scattered, could not be seen as the children of Abraham. So a new narrative was born, one that reimagined the Israelites not as a Semitic people with ties to Africa, but as Proto-Europeans, pale-skinned figures more at home in Rome or London than in the sun-baked soils of Canaan and Egypt. This was not an innocent misinterpretation. This was a calculated theological position. a weaponized version of Scripture designed to erase the African identity from biblical history. It was through this distortion that a white Jesus emerged. White disciples, white prophets, white kings. These images, replicated in stained glass windows, paintings, and children's Bibles, became so widespread that to question them was to risk being called a heretic. By the 19th century, this revisionist history had become gospel, not through divine inspiration, but through colonial enforcement. But pause and consider, how could a people born in the Middle East, raised under the scorching desert sun, naturally appear as Northern Europeans? Does geography lie? Or has the lie been painted over geography? Even as these false images were solidified, the truth remained stubborn. It could not be entirely destroyed. It lived on in the scrolls, in the archaeological remains, and most powerfully, in the cultural memory of those who carried it in their bones and blood. Across the African continent, and among the descendants of the diaspora, echoes of Israelite traditions, rituals, laws, music, and oral history continue to survive, whispering a forgotten identity. So, as we've journeyed through these first 4 revelations, I hope you're beginning to see the rich, complex, and often suppressed story of the Black Israelites in the Bible. It's a story that challenges us to question the images we've been presented, to reconsider the history we've been taught, and to reconnect with a heritage that may have been deliberately hidden. The core message here is about reclaiming truth, about understanding that the Bible's story is far more diverse and inclusive than many portrayals suggest. It's about recognizing that the roots of faith run deep into African soil, and that the descendants of those who endured so much may be closer to the ancient Israelites than we ever imagined. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. What resonated most with you? What questions are swirling in your mind? Please leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation and explore these ideas together. And if you found this information thought-provoking and want to delve even deeper into this fascinating topic, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video, where we'll uncover even more hidden truths. The journey to understanding is a continuous one, and I'm so glad you're taking it with me.